Hello and welcome. I am Meticulous Ace, and I just got done playing the Back 4 Blood Alpha. It was terrible. Alright, so let's get into why it was terrible. I've made a comprehensive list on each topic and I'll go through each one in the most simple way that I can. So let's start with the movement. Moving around in the world of Back 4 Blood just feels very clunky. As I described it in a feedback post I wrote to the devs, it feels like you're floating over the floor but you weigh 1,000 pounds. Everything seems to stick to you and you've always got this feeling that someone's tugging on your back. It's a difficult feeling to explain, but it's just not right. The Ridden have a pretty long attack range and each hit slows you down to a crawl. It never feels like you can get away from any monster that's close to you, and the stamina meter doesn't help that either. There's a sprint bar or a stamina meter that depletes when you run, or use a melee weapon. But it runs out so fast that it's pointless to even have in the game. This, along with the global movement properties of the game, make it a tedious task just to get from one room to the other. I was really not fond of it. Next, let's talk about the Ridden. Oh boy, this is one of those points where the game really suffers. The special Ridden, or Mutations as they're called, have no roles or specific purposes in the game. They all act like DPS or damage class enemies. With their designs, their sole purpose now has been demoted to piling on more damage that you're already going to take from the common infected. Let's go through each Ridden and I'll explain what I mean. The Wretch is the first offender of terrible design. He is range damage, damage over time, and area of effect damage all in one. When you're puked on, you're taking damage, and then this alerts the Horde, and now you try to get away, but the acidic vomit on the ground damages you, and then he runs over to you and explodes, causing even more damage. Who designed this? In what way is this monster balanced for PvP? At one point I was playing on the hardest difficulty, and I had a Wretch puke on me, and I went from 77 health to 0 in mere seconds. He is a train wreck of unbalanced proportions, and his design makes no sense. Next, we have the Hawker, or the Stinger. This Ridden can fire a sticky ball of slime that traps you in place and holds you there. But the slime ball doesn't just hold you there, it actually starts sapping away your health. So this Ridden has both range damage and damage over time, and if it spits on you in a place that the survivors can't reach, you're dead. You can't even see where the spit comes from half the time, and there's no distinct sounds on when it's actually being fired, so you're just playing and all of a sudden you're trapped and have no idea where it came from. Then there's the Tall Boy. He can do massive amounts of damage, and the range of his attack hitbox is incredibly huge. You might as well just give him a gun. He can completely block you from leaving the already cramped spaces of the map, and there can be multiple spawned at one time. He has an incredible amount of health. If you're not shooting his weak point, you're basically not doing any damage to him at all. And last we have the Ogre, who is a complete waste of time and energy. Normally, you design things with a purpose, but what exactly is that for the Ogre? He's a 20-foot monster that you can easily run from. He spawns into the map super slowly, and if you try to fight him, you just run out of ammo. So what is the point of this monster? I thought he would have been in an area where you have to defeat him in order to progress or something like a boss, but he can just show up at random times in other maps for no reason. Again, I think his design and everything around him is just completely pointless. There's no real reason for him to be in the game. It's almost like the devs were like, hey guys, remember we made Evolve, that game that really flopped and didn't do very well? Well, here's a monster from Evolve. So where are the capture type of Ridden? Kind of like the Smoker or the Jockey from Left 4 Dead. And where are the utility Ridden? Like the Spitter or the Boomer? Every single one of these monsters just constantly do damage to you, and I can't possibly see that working out in PvP. So let's move on to maps. The maps are like close quarters combat Call of Duty deathmatches. Everything is crammed into tiny spaces and the maps aren't very big at all. The only reason that it takes so long to get through them is because there's always a massive flow of infected constantly running at you. So you have to sit there and shoot in the same room for 10 minutes until you get enough room to actually make a break for it. Even the outdoor areas are super cluttered with things, and it almost makes you feel like you're playing on an on-rails shooter. Lots of straight paths with little room for you to avoid danger or work around your teammates. I don't know why the maps were designed like this. Maybe to artificially create some kind of tension by bottlenecking you into certain corners or something, but it's just not a good design to go with. Moving on, let's talk about the currency system. There is a currency called copper, which appears to be little copper coins players can collect around the map. This currency is the most out-of-touch mechanic that was added to the game. I can just see a crusty old publisher sitting at their big meeting table going, "Well, if our game doesn't have any money in it, it can't be AAA. Look, Cyberpunk 2077 has money in it. Let's put it in!" Seriously, this game is about survival, and in Left 4 Dead, you found all of your supplies. But now I'm buying things with these little coins from a magic orange box? How does this possibly make sense, even in the world that the devs are trying to portray, and in this type of co-op game? It just doesn't fit. Alright, let's talk about the card system. Now, what seemingly appeared to be a good idea on paper turns out to be a terrible idea in-game. I gotta say, I was excited when they first mentioned this because I thought the card system would have set rules for you to play by. The whole world should obey the decisions of the cards, but it doesn't even remotely happen that way. For example, I have 3 cards. One is Molotov's only mode, one creates fog during the campaign, and the third one is headshots restore HP. Then you could all vote on what card you want to use and it changes the game. Why couldn't it be like that? Instead, we have cards that are used like perks for each player, and they don't actually change much. There are small boosts that you can use before a match, but that's it. You also have to use the cards in order to change your starting weapon, which is super weird and awkward. I mean, so you're telling me that I have to go to the main menu, set up a deck, and then go back into the game just so I can start with the Uzi instead of the AK? What a terrible idea. Why can't I refrain from using cards and play the game as a vanilla experience anyway? I thought the cards were going to be an optional way to play the game and change things up and add more variety and fun. But no, they're just tedious, unhelpful bonuses that don't actually really change the game in any way. Now, for the game's difficulty. The game is extremely difficult for all the wrong reasons. Even the easiest difficulty is like playing on hard for most games. The Ridden are non-stop spawning for about 90% of gameplay, and it's almost like they're constantly aggroed to you. There's no time for suspense or time to look for items, it's just a constant running and shooting and reloading until you reach the next safe room. There was this one part in the campaign where there was someone who was trying to communicate to your team over the radio, and I couldn't even focus or pay attention to what she was saying because I'm constantly being bombarded by enemies coming out of the woodworks. If you raise the difficulty, the game only gets worse. With raising a difficulty comes a balance that requires more skillful players to pass. But in Back 4 Blood, apparently they think that raising the health points of the Ridden to incredible amounts means that you're a more skilled player? The tall boy in Nightmare mode has so much health that you might as well just tape down the fire button on your mouse and go to bed for the night because he won't be dead until you wake up. I have never seen any game being praised for a difficulty that just increases the health of everything that's in it. What a lazy approach to difficulty design. It's super boring when you're just shooting a monster for 3 minutes and he just won't die. Okay, so the last thing to talk about is the bugs. And yes, I totally understand this is an alpha, and I did expect bugs. That's just part of what an alpha is. But some of these bugs make me question what the devs said in their live stream when they released the alpha. They said, quote, "We've been playtesting Back 4 Blood since the 3rd month of being on the title, and we playtest close to every day." You playtest every day? Really? Is that why there's a ladder 10 minutes into your first mission on the critical path that kills you nearly every single time you touch it? Wouldn't that be considered an A-class bug you should remove before your big alpha showcase? If these are the kind of bugs that are going to be in the game from them playing every day, then I don't want to know what kind of bugs are going to be in the game in the future. I mean, geez, that's a pretty obvious one. There were plenty of other bugs too, like the AI just alerting the horde by themselves or throwing Molotovs at themselves. It was just a mess. It was really crazy. I felt like they just didn't even remotely test any of it. There's even a bug where you can just skip the crescendo moment that alerts the horde. All you do is you just pull the bridge down a little bit more and jump on the bridge and just hop right over it. It's like, you guys didn't see that? You didn't test that? Or nobody even thought that that could happen for 5 minutes? The reason I'm being so harsh on the bugs issue is because I used to be a QA tester for a game company. I know without a doubt that you should not release a showcase product into the public with bugs along the critical path that hurt the experience the players are going to have. That's just not a wise decision to make. I gotta say guys, this game was a huge disappointment, and I don't believe that it's going to be ready by June 2021 as they mentioned. If you didn't get an alpha key, really just don't worry about it. It wasn't a very good experience at all anyway. I wish I had more good things to say about the game, but everything felt just generic and bland mixed with frustration. Unless this game does a complete 180, I doubt it's going to be any good. I hope you guys like this review. I always try to be as honest and precise as I can. If you want more videos and reviews like this, please don't forget to subscribe. This is Meticulous Ace, signing off.